From the outside looking in, fighting often seems pretty clear-cut. Whoever uses their physical attributes and skills to impose their will onto the other fighter wins. However, a sentiment that's often echoed in the community is, a fight is 10% physical and 90% mental. In this video, I'll be delving into the mental aspect of fighting regarding a fighter's self-image and delusions. A grandiose self-image is almost a necessity for a fighter to reach the highest of highs. Having the belief that they're winners and visualizing themselves as such removes the limiting self-beliefs that regular people put upon themselves. This is why visualization and self-affirmations are some of the most common practices used by elite-level fighters. The significance of self-image is on full display with Michael Chandler. Throughout his wrestling career, he would work his way up to the top, but almost every time he made it to the main stage, he would somehow find a way to lose, even if he was heavily favored to win.
Made the team my freshman year, qualified for nationals all 4 years once again, but 3 years in a row I found myself in that same exact match that said, okay, son, you go out there, you win this match, you get the medal. You get up there if you win this match, and I lost freshman year, sophomore year, junior year.
Despite being at the top of his game physically and having all the technical abilities to place first, he didn't truly believe he deserved to be at the top, which greatly hindered his ability to perform when push came to shove.
I do everything right. I do the right things. I work hard. I'm the first guy in the practice room. I tell everybody I want to be a national champion. I tell everybody I want to be a world champion. But when it comes down to it, I somehow find a way to lose because I don't truly believe that I was put on this earth to be that big of a winner, you know?
What's happening here is a little bit of imposter syndrome, feeling undeserving or fraudulent, and cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of having two opposing beliefs. Although on the surface, Chandler told himself and everyone around him that he wanted to be the best, deep down, he didn't truly believe he deserved to be the best. So nearly every time he found himself in a high-stakes wrestling match, he fell short.
3 years, I made it to that match that said if you win, you get the medal. If you lose, you go home empty-handed, and that's where I found myself 3 years in a row, empty-handed. Senior year finally rolls around. I make it to the state finals. I should beat the guy, but I somehow found a way to let myself lose instead of finding a way to let myself win. I gave myself permission to lose instead of giving myself permission to win.
Due to the underlying self-image issues he had, whenever he found an opportunity to become the best, his self-image of being undeserving and fraudulent clashed with the action of winning and becoming the best. So to maintain cognitive consistency, his subconscious mind aligned his actions with his beliefs, losing career-defining match finals. Had he gone out there and won those matches, the misalignments between the action of becoming the best and his self-image being at ground zero would create some cognitive dissonance. Therefore, to preserve his perception of reality and avoid these inconsistencies, he performed in a manner that was congruent with his self-image. In other words, his mind subconsciously sabotaged him on multiple occasions.
The hard work and the dedication will get you to the state championships, and the hard work and the dedication will get you to the national championships, but it's only the self-image, your self-belief, your self-concept that's going to get you to the medal and not go home empty-handed.
Now, this is not to say that simply believing that you're a god amongst men is enough to carry you to a championship, nor does feeling incapable cease any ability to prove yourself wrong, but if you have two opposing beliefs, one naturally has to change. A man or woman cannot consistently perform in a manner that is inconsistent with the way he or she sees himself. Although Chandler didn't fully believe he deserved to be the best, he still found some success and went on to win the NCAA finals in his final year of competition. However, consistent success is achieved through the alignment of actions and beliefs. If you believe you're the best but don't work hard enough to achieve it, you either step up your work rate to align with your self-image, or your self-image comes down to match your actions. In Chandler's case, if you strive to be the best but don't have the adequate self-image for it, you either have to start believing in yourself, or you just don't find consistent success. It was after Chandler went on a 3-fight skid that he realized this was a recurring pattern caused by his self-image. After working on himself and fixing his mindset, he went on to reclaim the Bellator title and fight for a UFC title. Despite falling short, it was a back-and-forth fight that cemented Chandler's spot as one of the best in the division. However, here's where the dilemma arises. In a sport where two people enter the octagon and only one person exits victorious, most fighters will have to grapple with the implications of defeat at some point. No matter the self-belief, somebody's fantasy will have to be shattered on fight night. After weeks, months, or even years of telling themselves that they're the best, losing can be crippling for the self-image of a fighter, presenting some cognitive dissonance. The fighter believes they're the best, but they also just lost the fight. The mental discomfort from the cognitive dissonance presents a dilemma for the fighters. They either handle the defeat objectively and accept the reality of the situation, or chalk it up to external factors to preserve their own perception of reality. This is where fighters often show their true colors. Living in a delusion and denying the outcome of a fight is much easier to do than accepting the result and deepening the implications of it. Accepting defeat even when there may be a strong argument against it is a true sign of a champion. People like Robbie Lawler, who were victims of a bad cold, could have whined about it and pressed for a rematch. But instead, he showed the utmost humility and class, accepting the defeat and giving Herb a big old hug. Although it's extremely commendable when fighters deal with losses honestly and realistically, there is a point in which a fighter shouldn't stray too far. To better illustrate my point, I've made a little chart with one axis being a fighter's alignment with reality and another being their self-image maintenance. An example of a fighter being aligned with reality to an almost unnecessarily high degree is Jorge Masvidal after his fight with Kamaru Usman. In front of his hometown, he speaks from his heart and just says it how it is.
I was ready to wrestle 25 minutes. All the props to him in the world. He caught me by surprise. He's got my number, man. There's nothing I can say, but he won this fair and square, and God bless him, man.
Classy in defeat, sir. Always a pleasure.
He simply admits Kamaru is the better fighter and commends him for the fight. In a contest that had some bad blood, this was an impressive and classy way to handle the defeat. However, admitting that Kamaru has his number implies that Jorge no longer believes he's the best, or no longer believes he can defeat Kamaru. In this example, the fighter is saying, he is the better man. This indicates that the fight did rock his self-image a little bit, bringing it down to align with reality as, let's be honest, Kamaru is simply put the more effective all-round fighter. In our second example, Israel Adesanya showed class and acceptance, almost to the degree of Jorge after his loss to Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah, it didn't go exactly the way I wanted to go, but, dare to be great. It's like a bad day in the gym, except it's in the office tonight.
He was realistic and candid with his analysis of the fight, even shutting down Joe Rogan's attempts to make excuses for his loss.
Your decision also to go up very quickly and not put on any weight. Did you question that at all when he was
Never.
on top of you?
Never. That was just my legs being fatigued.
However, where I think he handles the defeat better than Jorge is through his breakdown on what went wrong. He accepts the defeat and doesn't argue the decision like many of his fans were doing. But he also says, quote, "It was like a bad day in the office." This implies that although Jan did beat him that day, he still believes he's the best, capable of beating Jan another day. In this example, the fighter is saying, he was the better man that night. On top of this, Izzy seems to have gone through and executed on what he believed went wrong in the fight, which is the point of a loss.
My legs being fatigued. I don't know what from, but I'll have to watch the tape.
An example of a fighter being a little delusional about their loss is Dominic Cruz. As much as this pains me to say as I'm a big fan of Dominic, his response to his defeat at UFC 249 was somewhat detached from reality.
I wanted to finish this fight. I haven't ever been knocked out before. I don't feel that I was knocked out tonight. I feel like I was still in this fight. But if the ref stopped it, the ref stopped it. I specifically made sure and told him that I didn't agree with the stoppage, which a lot of fighters do. But hats off to Henry. I got no excuses. I shouldn't have got caught with that knee on the way I got caught, and that's what put me in that position. But at the same time, I specifically asked the ref to make sure he let me take the shots I needed to.
Although he does ultimately admit that the loss falls on him, for the vast majority of the interview, he put the blame on the referee for stopping the fight early. In this example, the fighter is saying, he was the better man that night. However, I could have been the better man if X didn't happen to me, slightly shifting the blame to preserve his self-image. And lastly, we have Marvin Vettori, completely detached from reality with ridiculous excuses to keep his self-image alive.
It happened 3 years ago. It went like it went. I think I won that fight, but now we get to settle the score. And
they say you learn more from your losses. Of course, your last loss was to the champ. What did you learn about yourself in that fight?
That wasn't a loss.
In this example, the fighter is saying, I was the better man that night and it was stolen from me. Dealing with a loss realistically and honestly is a big part of losing, but fighters also need to maintain their self-image as the best in the world despite the loss. If the loss gets to you and makes you doubt your self-image, you'll only decline even further. Case in point, Francis Ngannou after the first Stipe fight. However, if you swing too far the other way and reject the result, believing you were wronged, there is no reason to improve because the reasons you lost were out of your control anyway, leaving no room for improvement. Now this is admittedly a bit of a fine line that we expect fighters to cross. As soon as a fighter makes any sort of excuse for a loss, the whole community clowns them for it, which is a bit unfair sometimes because most people would also make excuses in their shoes. Due to the self-image practices discussed in this video, winning can almost become a part of a fighter's identity. Fighters convincing themselves that they're unbeatable often sets them up for a downward spiral after a defeat. It does take a certain level of maturity to handle these losses acceptably, and if the fighters aren't equipped to deal with that yet, that's when we see the full spectrum of delusion. Maybe fighting isn't 90% mental, but it sure as hell is a huge piece of the puzzle when fighters like John Jones are willing to sacrifice some of their physical sharpness to protect their self-image from being shattered in a defeat.
And this was stupid, but it was this mental crutch that I had. I literally would, 1 week before every fight, I would go out and I would get blacked out wasted. And my logic was, if this guy were to beat me somehow, I can look myself in the mirror and say that, well, I lost because I got hammered the week before the fight.
It does take a special kind of crazy to be a fighter, but in the words of Tyson Fury,
if I wasn't crazy, I wouldn't be great.
A lot of the clips in this video were found through Mixed Molly Whoppery's video on Michael Chandler, so shout out to him real quick, not that he really needs one from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this slightly more conceptual style of video. Now, this did take some effort to make, so if you enjoyed, please hit the like button so YouTube shoves my videos into other people's faces. If you have any of your own thoughts, ideas, or discussions, leave them down below. I'll probably respond. Maybe. And subscribe while you're down there. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video.